Lived experiences of African American women in mid-level leadership positions in higher education, presented by Reina Williams. Abstract. Black feminist thought provides a framework to examine and analyze the microaggressions and structural racism that impact African American women in mid level leadership positions at predominantly white institutions and historically black colleges and universities. Due to their intersectionality, African American women's experiences hinder them from advancing to senior leadership positions at higher education institutions. The intersectionality of African American women's social identities and how it impedes their advancement into senior leadership roles will be explored using a mixed methods research approach that collects and analyzes the lived experiences of African American women in mid level leadership positions. Problem statement. An extensive review of the literature revealed there's no published research exploring the impact of microaggressions and structural racism on the advancement of African American women from mid level to senior level administrative positions in higher ed, specifically at private colleges and universities. So, hopefully, this mixed method study would help fill some gap in that literature. A literature review was conducted, and the seminal work, Presumed Incompetent: The Intersections of Race and Class for Women in Academia, discussed obstacles for women of color in the academy, which included challenges of being viewed as other and inferior, being pigeonholed as race or gender experts, lack of mentoring false allies, extra identity work to overcome being assumed affirmative action hire, class bias in higher education, tokenism, and gender and racial bias in student evaluations. Purpose of study. The purpose of this mixed methods research study is to fill a gap by examining the experiences of African American women in mid level positions at private colleges and universities, including HBCUs. The literature states that African American women are not given the same opportunities to advance to leadership positions at colleges and universities in the U.S. The leadership at institutions of higher education lack diversity, with African American women and men making up only 8% of all college presidents. The research questions that were investigated in this mixed methods study included: how do support systems and mentorship prepare African American women in mid level positions for senior level positions? How do African American women plan to advance from mid level administrative positions into senior level positions at private colleges and universities? How do African American women in mid level administrative positions perceive structural racism's impact on their advancement from mid to senior level administration in private colleges and universities? What support systems and mentorship are provided for African American women who are currently in mid level administrative positions to advance to senior level? How do African American women prepare to advance into senior level positions of leadership at private colleges and universities? Theoretical framework. Black feminists thought it's a chosen theoretical framework for this mixed method study. It supports the research questions of the study and will contribute to the existing scholarship investigating the lived experiences of African American women in mid level leadership positions in private academic institutions. Researchers have used Black feminist thought to investigate and analyze the experiences of African American women in leadership positions in higher education. Mixed methods research design. This mixed methods research study used exploratory sequential design, which allowed for a more rigorous data collection process. The themes and codes used in the qualitative database were used to develop the survey instrument. The survey instrument was administered to a larger sample size of participant, which allowed the researcher to collect more data on the experiences of African American women in leadership positions in private academic institutions. This slide is a visual representation of the mixed methods research design. One important aspect of developing the survey instrument for the quantitative portion of the mixed method study was to refer back to the code book that was developed for the qualitative data analysis. So some of the codes were expressed desires. So the desires expressed by participants. Racism that the participants experienced in the workplace. Demotion. So some participants in the qualitative um, interview process discussed being demoted, having their expertise demised in the workplace, barriers and challenges, surprises or the unexpected that would occur in the workplace. And then those codes were used to develop the survey instrument. Data collection. The survey instrument development for the quantitative process was rigorous and includes several steps. The themes, codes, and quotes from the qualitative database were used to design the survey instrument that was used to collect quantitative data. The inclusion criteria that was used to select participants in the study were if they were African American. For the purposes of this study, African Americans defined as individuals of African descent whose ancestors were enslaved or born free in the United States. They are female, higher education administrators or leaders, and they work at a private higher education institution. Data collection. 3 rounds of emails were sent to recruit participants as well as contacting them via their LinkedIn profiles. Of the 12 respondents, only 5 fit the inclusion criteria. So, based on that, only having 5 that were actually applicable to the inclusion criteria is not enough data to generate an analysis that would lead to generalizations about the larger population of African American women working in private higher education institutions. Data analysis. An independent analysis process was used to analyze the data collected in this mixed methods study. The first phase of the exploratory sequential design was conducted and the qualitative data analyzed and findings interpreted. Based on the analysis of the qualitative data, themes were identified. Those themes were used to develop a code book for the quantitative phase of the study, resulting in integration of the qualitative and quantitative phases. Participants were asked, do you have a mentor or sponsor at your employer or professionally, either formal and informal? They were asked to select all that apply. So 50% said no, I do not have a mentor or a sponsor. 30% said that they had a sponsor in their field or professionally, whether that was through a professional organization or a Greek organization. And 20% said they had an unassigned mentor in the workplace. This slide is a visual representation of the previous table about mentorship and sponsorship. So you'll see this pie chart, half of the participants said that they did not have a mentor or sponsor. And then the next largest piece was that they either had a sponsor that was within their field or professionally. So participants were asked if they experienced bullying in the workplace and if it was their supervisor or colleague. So 30% said that it was a colleague, 20 said a supervisor, one participant said it was their dean, and 40% or 4 participants said that it wasn't applicable to them. And here you'll see a visual representation of that previous table about workplace bullying from a supervisor or colleague. Participants were also asked, do you believe the barriers and challenges you experience have impacted your career advancement? 40% agreed and 30% strongly agreed that it did have an impact on their career. And again, here you see a visual representation of a pie chart of the impacts of barriers and challenges. You'll see that there's a larger slice of the pie. That large blue piece is the participants that agreed, and then the other large green piece were the participants who strongly agreed that they did experience barriers and challenges. So the first finding related to research question Number one was, how do support systems and mentorship prepare African American women in mid level administrative positions for senior level administrative positions? The findings were that only 1 out of 5 respondents had a sponsor and or mentor, and majority of the respondents did not think it impacted their career advancement. The second research question, how do African American women plan to advance from mid-level administrative positions into senior level administrative positions at private colleges and universities? The findings were that all 5 respondents aspired to advance into leadership roles in higher education. Research question number 3, how do African American women in mid-level administrative positions perceive structural racism's impact on their advancement from mid-level to senior level administrative positions at private colleges and universities? So participants were asked, do you believe the barriers and challenges you experience have impacted your career advancement? And majority of participants did agree that it did have an impact. Research question number 4 was, what support systems and mentorship are provided for African American women in mid-level administration to prepare them to advance to senior level administration? The findings were that only 1 out of 5 respondents received any mentorship or sponsorship. Research question number 5. How do African American women prepare to advance into senior level administrative positions at private colleges and universities? So the findings include that all 5 respondents had graduate level education and 3 out of 5 were promoted within. So the researcher made some assumptions. The assumption was that the participants would be willing to share their experiences because the survey was going to be kept confidential, that they wouldn't be identified. Each participant was given a participant ID. And when you're talking about some sensitive topics like workplace bullying and career challenges, and this particular population, which is vulnerable, when you review the literature, identifies that African American women are more likely to experience bullying, microaggressions, and other unseemly things in the workplace, that they probably would be hesitant to share exactly what their experiences were. But there was an assumption by the researcher, by ensuring that confidentiality, that participants would be willing to share. So there were some limitations with the study. Not interviewing women that identify as Black or women from other African ethnic identities. The study only focused on participants that work at private academic institutions. And the boundaries that were set by the researcher just made it difficult to recruit participants for the study because it really limited those who met the inclusion criteria. Some individuals that were recruited did not identify as African American. Delimitations. Boundaries set in the study included excluding participants that did not identify as African American and female, as well as excluding participants that worked at junior community colleges or some other type of public institution. So, research question number 1, how do support systems and mentorship prepare African American women in mid level administrative positions for senior level administration? The recommendations based on the literature were that individuals should take care of themselves, so self care. They should rely on outside networks of family and friends for support, building emotional distance between their personal and professional lives. Mentorship and support of African American was also mentioned within the literature, so professional development opportunities in the workplace, and releasing African American women from other responsibilities, especially the amount of service to students, because students of color will often go to African American women for assistance. So the second recommendation, based on research question number 2, how do African American women plan to advance from mid-level administration to senior level administration at private college or university. Again, based on the literature, building vertical cross-generational alliances, building horizontal peer networks and alliances, building cross-border communities and alliances, so those outside of the department or school or even the university. So the recommendation for response to research question number 3, how do African American women in mid-level administrative positions perceive structural racism's impact on their advancement from mid-level to senior level administration at private colleges and university? So to persevere when things get difficult, do not give up. Let go of the humiliation to pursue something bigger. Take action, stand up, make reports to your HR office about experiences in the workplace, such as racism. And do not assume every statement or action is rooted in racism or prejudice. Research question number 4, what support systems and mentorship are provided for African American women in mid-level administration to prepare them for senior level administration? So the recommendations are really you have to have institutional transformation. So the hiring process has to give African American women an opportunity for advancement, mentorship in the workplace to help prepare these women for senior levels so that they are the best candidate. Promotion and also tenure to help them advance at the academic institution. Having a campus climate that allows for support so these women can advance. Research question number 5. How do African American women prepare to advance into senior level administration at private colleges and universities? So the recommendations are educational attainment, advanced degrees, which we saw our participants all had master degrees and doctoral degrees. Building professional networks, service to professional and community organizations as well can be a good way to build relationships to help with advancement. So, in conclusion, the experiences of African American women in mid level administration and higher education institutions should be further investigated and concrete solutions presented at academic institutions to improve the work environment for African American women. We definitely need to have additional research that includes larger sample sizes so we can see how prevalent the themes that were identified in this study were experienced by African American women working in private institutions of higher education. Thank you for taking the time to watch my presentation.